doing on a day where an 81-page memo surfaces, which is the justification for torture?
Dr. Martin Luther King would have been, first of all, he would have been assassinated over and over and over again. In the
couldn't kill him enough, right?
Couldn't have killed him enough. But we saw how quickly he, and matured is almost a condescending word, how quickly he took in the entirety of human conflict, from the particulars of the humiliation of black folks in Montgomery, Alabama, to the macro degradation of humanity by a whole system called imperialism. And he did not bite his tongue. He said the word imperialism. Have you heard any of the Democratic candidates, except Kucinich, by the way, say the word imperialism, acknowledge that it even existed? And yet here, our beloved Dr. King used the word all the time in the last several years of his life. Why would we think he would be doing anything else today other than denouncing the main imperialist in the world, the country that he said, and I believe it was in 1967, was the greatest purveyor of violence on the planet Earth? And why would he give Israel a pass? What would make us believe such a thing?
And we're tough on Barack Obama, but of course, it would be hard to imagine, because Hillary Clinton essentially represents, with a different feel, the same general policies. Actually, she's a bit better on subprime and the bailout, but nevertheless, she's got subprime bandits running her campaign. And let's not forget that Penny Pritzker's brother is working for the Clinton campaign as a co-chair. So, it's one big corporate happy family, but one wonders what this will mean for real people.
Well, that's why this has been such a strange campaign. Even identical twins do have differences. There are differences between identical twins, and we can see that in the raw with Clinton and Barack Obama, whose policies are essentially identical. And because they are essentially identical, the only material that the corporate media has to play with are these little piddling non-issues, attitudinal problems, horse race talk. This has become a very uninteresting campaign because they're twins. We have lost. That is really the conclusion. The progressives are not in this conversation, but somehow many of our people who we have identified as progressives and who still believe are deluded into thinking that they're acting as progressives, think somehow that because so many people have capitulated to Obama as if he is progressive, then there's a movement in there somewhere, even though there's no demand in there. How can we have a movement that has no demands, that makes no demands on power?
That's hard to imagine.
Could we have a Dr. King and his movement without any demands on the power structure?
Well, people say on National Public Radio this morning, and they played a little clip from the speech, the Dream speech, and the news person came on and said that was Martin Luther King, and he was saying how he was making the point that he didn't mind dying.
I heard you when you said that, when you gave me a heads up earlier on that. If that's not one of the most inane things I can imagine. But
he didn't understand. What was he missing? What do you think he was? What does a comment like that show?
I don't know. I really don't know. Is he reducing Dr. King's bravery in the face of the danger of assassination, which of course everyone knew was there? Is that person equating that with some kind of death wish, and thereby denigrating, in fact, Dr. King's courage? Trying to analyze that kind of.
It does. I said this when I jerked up out of bed, jumped up and started.
The suicide preacher?
Yeah, I'm thinking, no, this guy devoted himself to life. He wanted to give life. I've never encountered a figure and read and studied a figure who was more determined to live. So
longevity has its advantages.
We're going to have to leave it right there. I hope that, Glenn Ford, we can continue this discussion and that we can hear more from you about what is happening in the campaign and what might be interesting that we can talk about in this context. We do thank you. Again, I want to tell people you're the executive editor of Black Agenda Report. How can people get that?
They can get it by dialing up www.blackagendareport.com, and it is free.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Unless you feel out of the goodness of your heart that you might send us a little something.
All right. Well, we want to thank you for being with us on Flashpoints.
Thank you for the opportunity.
My pleasure.
Anytime you call, I'm available for you.
Thank you. And that does wrap it up for another edition of Flashpoints. A couple announcements. Rachel Corey on Saturday.